200 days. I trained for 200 days in a row ahead of my first race this season. Through all of the rain, the ice, a little bit of boredom, fatigue, quite a bit of self-doubt. So now, at the end of the season, did I get any stronger? Was it really worth all of that energy? Let's find out. It gets a little bit more difficult as you go through the power zones, and then as you get closer to your breaking point, you will just blow up, and that's the point. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel and another ultra cycling related video. If you've been watching for a little while, then you'll know roughly my backstory. I've mentioned training 200 days in a row a good few times, but don't worry, this is probably the last time I will. This is a bit of an introspective video and trying to answer the question, was it worth all the energy that I put in? If you are new to the channel, you may not have seen last week I put out a film about my race through Bosnia. And in that film, I talk a lot about my backstory, being hit by 2 cars, my entry into endurance riding, and all of the opportunities I had to quit, and times when I probably could or should have. But the short story is, my name's Andy, I'm an ultra cyclist on the south coast of the UK, and I make videos about ultra training, kit and adventures. Over the last few years, I've been building my mileage up from my first century, my first double century, taking on some bigger events, and eventually working my way into ultra bikepacking racing. Last year, I attempted All Points North in the UK and the transcontinental race across Europe, and I scratched at both of them. I couldn't hack it mentally at All Points North, the rain got to me, couldn't do it. And in the transcontinental race, I was injured and I didn't make it past the Alps. I think I rode about 1,000 kilometers. So I started to have a lot of doubt towards the end of last year, thinking maybe I can't do this. Maybe I should move on to something else. As time went on, I couldn't let it go, and I thought I'm going to have another crack at it next year. Around this time last year, I made a video about coaching and why I didn't really feel like I needed a coach. I feel like I'm very disciplined. I train very regularly, very driven. So I felt like I had most things under control. But what happened was, after I made that video, I was contacted by Giovanni Prosperi. Long story short, I changed my tune and I have a coach now. So I looked into Giovanni, and he's won the race across America in the relay category, and I could see that he's helped quite a few of his clients achieve their goals. So I thought, let's give this a go. The first thing we did was sit down, get to know each other a little bit, understand what my goals are, and put together a bit of a framework or a training plan. I decided I wanted to go all in. I wanted to dedicate as much time and energy as possible into training and to see what I can really achieve if I put everything out there and basically leave no doubt. So for me, I've got a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week. I want to do my training, but also making these videos takes quite a lot of time too. So I decided I could probably give 20 hours a week to this. And in reality, that was quite a challenge. So what does that plan even look like? It does ramp up through the year. To begin with, it was a bit less in terms of hours, and as I got closer to my races, it built up and up to try to make sure I had the endurance for the races. I was racing B-Hard through Bosnia, which is 1,200 kilometers, and Via Race, which is 4,000 kilometers. An average week would have mostly Zone 1, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd have an hour of Zone 1. Saturday and Sunday were longer rides, whatever pace I wanted. The Tuesdays and Thursdays were the tough ones. Those were the days I said I could do intensity based on how well I can recover through the week and be ready for my long ride on the weekend. I did intensity Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it got pretty intense. Usually one day of VO2 max and one day of threshold, something like that. We started working together in December, and when I first opened the training plan, I gotta be honest, I laughed. I literally laughed out loud because it was so different to what I was doing before. And then when I saw the training was on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve, I thought that was a bit of a stretch, but I got through them. I trained every single day, and I'm really glad I did in hindsight. So challenge-wise, keeping up that kind of pace was difficult. It was relentless. To begin with, I'll be honest, I don't think I was recovering quite so well. It was a big increase and a lot to take on. I was trying to be creative at the beginning, trying to find ways to get through the workouts. Maybe if I changed what I have for lunch. My lunches weren't very carb heavy, so I changed my meals through the day to be more carb heavy and to get more energy in me food wise. I started to do warm-ups. I never did warm-ups before, but I found warm-ups online So I did a 10-minute stretching and warm-up routine off the bike before I started, and that really helped. Over time, as the months went on, it got a bit easier. I started to notice I was getting on top of the zones, feeling a lot better during the sessions, and I did a lot of my training outside. I started to notice on those training rides outside I'd be getting new PRs pretty much every time, a new 10-second power, a new 5-minute power, something like that. So I could tell I was getting a bit stronger and starting to get on top of the training plan. We set a couple of other challenges along the way. One was an Everesting, indoors, but to do an Everesting on Zwift, and the other was to go back to Goodwood and reattempt 100 miles in less than 5 hours elapsed without stopping. I did manage to do the Everesting, that really helped in the races, and going back to Goodwood, I did get below 5 hours for 100 miles. So fast forward a little bit of time, the training's all done, 200 days in the bag, and I'm on my way to Bosnia for my first race. And that's the film that was released last week. So if you want to see how that went, go watch that film. I put too much time into that film. But spoiler alert, I finished the race. It was really grueling, but I got to the end. By the way, if any of this is useful or interesting, then please give the video a like and consider subscribing. After Bosnia, I had about 3 or 4 weeks to recover, and then I was off to the south of Italy to race 4,000 kilometers north to the Netherlands. That race also went pretty well. I didn't place particularly high. That wasn't my goal. All those months ago when I sat down and spoke with Giovanni and we talked about goals for the season, my goal was to get through the races and enjoy them. I know that I don't have it in me to win races. I'm going to have a better go next year and try to go a bit faster. My goal isn't to win races. I want to get through them and enjoy them and feel good about the time that I finished those races in. And that's exactly what happened. I finished Be Hard. It was grueling. I had opportunities to quit and I didn't. And I'm really pleased that I got to the end of that race. And then during Via, that film isn't out yet, but you'll see we had 4 days of rain through the Alps. It's pretty bad to be honest, but I was in such a good mood all the way through. It's the most bizarre thing I've experienced. The more the rain came, the better I felt, and I don't really understand why that is yet, but even when I got home and it started to rain, I kind of got the feeling I had in Via, and I felt good about it. I really don't know why that is, but I think possibly it's having to be out for 200 days in the rain and the ice and to get through it. It just didn't bother me whatsoever. So that's the races out of the way. The races went well, I felt really good about them. I finished both of them for once, and the season is basically over for me. I'm now just out riding with friends, enjoying riding my bike. However, we can't just leave it there. Obviously, I don't want to leave it just as a subjective thing. I felt better, I had a great season. What's my FTP? FTP for me is a vanity metric. It's a 20-minute power and it doesn't really transfer to a lot, but it is a really good way to understand that you definitely did get fitter and by how much. And if you're doing the same test at the start and at the end, then you really know where you stand. I personally tend to do a ramp test. I don't know if you do something different. Feel free to let me know if you think there's a better way of testing. I just don't like the 20-minute test. So I did a test not long before I started working with Giovanni, and my power was 254 watts. So I'm doing the same test now. The ramp test on Zwift. It didn't go perfectly, but I think well enough to get a pretty good idea of where I am. The ramp test, if you don't know already, you start with a bit of a warm-up. Zwift will set your turbo trainer at a slightly higher power every minute. It gets a little bit more difficult as you go through the power zones, and then as you get closer to your breaking point, you will just blow up, and that's the point. I had a slight issue with my test. Obviously, I wanted to record it to put in this video. I screen recorded the test on Zwift, and then all of a sudden, the test froze, and I thought, what's going on? My turbo trainer isn't working anymore. What actually happened was my hard drive was full of all the footage from the races, so the screen recording stopped. So I jumped back on the bike quickly and continued with the test, and then blew my doors off. I do wonder if maybe hopping off the bike to sort that issue out might have affected the FTP, but to be honest, I've started training since that test, and I feel like it's probably about right. So the way that the ramp test works, whatever your highest 1 minute power was at the end of the test, your highest 1 minute power in terms of watts, Zwift will take that number and take 75% of it. So say you did 400 watts for a minute, Zwift is going to give you an FTP of 300 watts. And the result for me was 275. So that's given me a return of about 10% power-wise after that massive block of training. So I'm going to let you tell me if you think that's worth 200 days of solid effort, of not seeing anybody and putting in everything I possibly could for a really long time. But I will tell you my view on this. When I sat down with Giovanni and we looked at my goals for the year, FTP didn't feature into it at all, not once. So my goal was to go back into these races and complete them. I didn't want to be injured. I didn't want to be breaking down in the rain and the cold. And as I explained in those races, that's exactly what I got. 0 injuries, and if anything, I relished the poor conditions. There's a point, if you watch the Be Hard film, towards the end when I'm getting kind of close to the end, I made the decision to push so hard that I thought I'm probably going to injure myself. I'm going to push myself there and just get to the finish and deal with the injury afterwards. I've had knee injuries in the past and that's kind of what I was expecting. Going after mountain to get to the finish, I really didn't think I'd be able to do it without blowing my knees completely apart. But it was fine. So that's my verdict. No tears in the rain, no destroyed knees, 2 completed races. I'm really happy with the result and how this season turned out. I'm sure if I sat down with Giovanni at the start of the season and said, my goal is an FTP of 350, he'd give me a plan to try to achieve that. And that kind of leads on to next season. We've had a bit of a debrief after the races and he's pretty satisfied my ability endurance-wise is there. So we've decided between us, we're going to focus on power. So a little bit less endurance over the winter. I'm going to really knuckle down and try to take those 275 watts and see where I can take it. So if you're interested in seeing what I might have to implement to get there next season, then stick around because I do have another 4,000 kilometer race next year. But anyway, thanks as always for watching all the way through to this point, and I'll see you all next time.